Welcome back to Nick Landis Doctor Who Review, episode number 97. And it's kind of a good thing I'm talking about this one before we reach episode 100, because you'd be like, really? Go 100 episodes and you don't talk about this story for Doctor Who? One of the most important stories ever in the history of Doctor Who. That being the very first one, an Unearthly Child, on the Doctor Who The Beginning DVD. Now, this particular story here is somewhat very infamous. In recent times, it has been. Because, for some weird legal reason, people cannot watch this thing online. This particular story. You can't watch it on Tubi. All the rest of the story is available from the... By the way, this is from the first Doctor, by the way. William Hartnell's my introduction to him. I'll go back to William Hartnell soon, but it's not on Tubi. There was an actual app that was specifically created for Doctor Who, which had every single available story in the history of Doctor Who except this one. Why? Because of a legal issue involving the original writers of the story. You're like, really? Yes, really. That's the reason I've heard of why the story is simply not available. So the only way people can watch it is by getting these physical DVD copies. Or do some legal stuff. But this is the legal way you actually watch this thing nowadays. Which, in my opinion, is stupid. Like, BBC, please sort out the issue that there is with the original writers of the story to allow the story to be seen by the Doctor Who fans. Because by far, this is a really dumb idea on basically... Now, BBC probably has to go through this because they had no choice in the matter. It's the original creators. And who loses in this result of this legal dispute between these two? The fans. It's similar with the case of Superman, where the creators of Superman had to fight DC for decades over the control of this character. And yet, who suffers as a result of it? The fans. Because all the creators' family, well, now it's just the family, all they want is their money. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. That's all they want, their money. Yeah, that's simply the reason for it. But in the case of the episode itself, now, from what I heard, the production of the show started... Now, of course, yes, I have talked about little Doctor Who stories throughout this, but I've never discussed William Hartnell. I was not planning on doing it, but I had to because this DVD did feature the first appearance of an alien species that's my personal favorite alien species in Doctor Who. I'll discuss it indefinitely in the very next episode, by the way. Yes. And the plan is the 100th episode will feature a story that was restored via animation, and it would feature a character who actually was brought back for the 6th anniversary. I'll discuss it when we get to episode 100. But this story, apparently, the concept of the show was developed back in April of 1963. For a while, basically, it was being developed, and then the first episode was shot in September. And this DVD does include the original pilot, and oh boy, like, visually this thing looks horrible. Like, characters out of focus, like the camera, of course, there's a much better version out there of the actual pilot episode that was shown to the public. I'm not sure why this particular pilot episode, the original pilot, was actually shown with the serial. Like, I would put it on special features, not as part of the main story. That just felt very jarring, because it felt like watching the first episode twice for no reason. Yes. Now, when the thing was finally shown in November of 1963, it aired on November 22nd, 1963. Now, this is by sheer coincidence. This is not the fall of Doctor Who for this particular thing. What happened on November 22nd, 1963? Well, my family was my dad's 7th birthday. But for the U.S., it was the assassination of JFK. Just by sheer coincidence. Now, and because of that, basically, that the coverage of this assassination, it overshadowed this first episode, so the BBC decided to re-air it as a repeat the following week, probably along with the newest episode. So, not the BBC's fault for that. Yeah, they're not at fault with the first episode when they first aired. It just, the news of the JFK assassination just overshadowed it. And you watch this story, it feels like two completely different stories in this thing, because the first episode is set in 1963. The rest of it is basically like the more infamous part of the story, where it's in caveman times. Also, this would start something with Doctor Who would only be associated with the first Doctor and never associated with any other Doctor since then. The episode parts of this thing would have titles. Yes, they have titles. And the titles are Unearthly Child, which is also the name of the whole story. The Cave Skulls, The Force Fit, and The Firemaker. Yes, this would be something that the BBC would do with this thing for some time. Now, those of you curious, it may have started with this story here. When did it stop? When did it stop doing the whole thing of, oh, let's get the episode names? Let's see. Like, what was the very first Doctor story to not feature any, it was a story of the Savages. That was the very first one. Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Apparently this one was also an animated surgery, so I may get my hands on this thing. Yes. But yeah, the Savages was the first one to where that one is to have basically like parts instead of like episode names. Yes. Now I know about Galaxy 4 getting that. Now some of the titles were for the first Doctor are some of the most bizarre names that you probably can think of. Of course, the following two stories, I'm going to discuss those in these series reviews. The fourth story was Marco Polo. There's King of Marinus, the Aztecs, the Centaurites, the Reign of Terror, Planet of Giants, Spoiler, Invasion of Earth, The Rescue, The Romans, The Web Planet, The Crusade, The Space Museum, The Chase, Time Meddler, Galaxy 4, Mythmakers, The Spoiler Master Plan, The Massacre, The Ark, The Slash Toymaker, Gunfire, Savages, War Machine, Smugglers, and 10th Planet. Those are the names of the first Doctor stories. Now, the thing opens up with basically where we meet our two first two characters we're introduced here is not the Doctor. Doctor's not introduced first. He's not introduced much later in the first episode. Our first introduced to Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright. Who are these two people, you might ask? Well, you're about to find out. Ian Chesterton was played by William Russell, who actually passed away just last year. In June. He passed almost 1 year ago. Barbara Wright was played by Jacqueline Hill, an actress who is, from what I've heard, very beloved actress in Doctor Who fandom. And she passed away in 1993, which was the same year that John Pertwee passed away. Just by sheer coincidence. William Hartnell himself passed away in 1973, not long after the 10th anniversary special. Karen Ford is surprisingly still alive at the age of 84. Yes. Now, they also have other characters here named... We'll get to them. But the thing starts off where two teachers talking about this woman named Susan. Susan Foreman. And about, ooh, mysterious grandfather, like, oh, gets into history. And the way this thing is shown, the way the pilot episode shows, this thing looks horrible. Like, the camera thing is like, people, like, the way the camera moves, it just... I get the fact it was early 60s, but my gosh, this looks horrible for early 60s standards. Like, the writing is fantastic, the acting is really good. It's just, the camera work is very shoddy at best. Where it's like, you have characters seem like the movie in slow motion here. So then we meet, we actually meet Susan in the classroom, where she's reading a book, and then she reads the book, which is actually kind of the French Revolution, by the way, and she puts the book down. The book itself is never seen again after that one scene until Remembrance of the Daleks, which just by sheer coincidence picks up one day after Unearthly Child. Yes, that's where Doctor and Ace go to. So then, of course, my grandfather was like, nah, I'm not interested. And then, of course, Ian and Bob proceed to follow them to the address, and it's basically a junkyard. The Foreman junkyard. And they go inside. They see this mysterious box in the middle. They go into like, wow, this place is huge. Of course, they come with the famous phrase here, bigger on the inside than on the outside. Yep. And we see the famous circles that the classic Who era is associated with. The famous console makes appearance here. Though the console itself mostly plays as like the circle thing in the middle. That has not really changed much over the years. They made some updates to it over the years. Like they made the pillar bigger. But the size of it in the classic era didn't really change very much at all. They had this glass wall on the side, and they also have a TV screen, which the screen itself would actually be very heavily used for a while. They actually use it constantly, and then the screen up there would be removed, and they put it on the console for some weird reason. Not sure what the reason for that is. And they actually would use the TV. Now, in case you're curious, knew who used the TV anymore? Not really. Because over time, basically, thanks to new technology, they updated TARDIS. Simple as that. They also have some chairs on the side of the thing, which they sit down. They also have a hat rack. The hat rack itself would actually be there for a long time. Yes, the hat rack would stay in the console room up until pretty much basically the entirety of Doctor Who. It's fallen over once in his Doctor Who. Only like once or twice at most. But the hat rack has always been there. The hat rack was something established kind of here because it's the early 60s, because people wore hats back then. That was simply the reason for it. So, then we're introduced to the Doctor himself, William Hartnell's version. And he's like, and then he just accidentally fails with the controls, and then they go back in time. First time travel here. And they would have returned to basically present day until 2 years later. Yes, when Ian and Barbara were written out of the show, they would not finally return to present day until the story The Chase. Yep, that particular story. That would be pretty much in a way the last thing they were seen in the series. And they were pretty much written out. And the joke was, when they left the show, they were actually mentioned on Sarah J. Adventures as, oh, these two haven't aged since the 1960s. Oh, that wasn't until Ian showed up on Power of the Doctor. He looks like his natural age. So, there's no denying when it comes to the first story of Doctor Who, where the opening episode is the best part of it. Because the remaining three stories is all caveman stuff. Like about all the Cave of Skulls, it's an actual Cave of Skulls, featuring a bunch of dead people. And the whole thing is, ooh, let's do fire. And basically, it's like a little adventure here, where basically Ian, Barbara, and Susan get the clothes dirty, along with the Doctor. And I at least got appreciated the fact the continuity here was actually pretty much intact. There was no continuity errors here. In case you're curious, though, would there be a story that has some occasional continuity hiccups? Yes, but that will happen much later. At this story, no, there's none. the director of the story, who he is somebody that this will surprise you. Laura Susan, he is still alive. You're like, what? Yeah, he's still alive. Yes, he directed the story. He would also direct Marco Polo. I think that'll be his last one he would direct for Doctor Who. Well, yeah, still alive, 86 years old. No mention about his health. Nope, but he's still very much alive. The guy who wrote one of the stories here, Anthony Corborn, yeah, he passed away in 1910 of a heart attack, so he's no longer alive. The other writer is C.E. Weber. He passed away in 1969. Basically, passed away when Patrick Troughton was a doctor. No stated cause of death, basically, he died of. One of the creators of Doctor Who's name is Sidney Newman. Yep. Now, Doctor Who, he also created the brief TV show The Avengers, also. So, basically, I figure C.E. Weber, basically, who is one of the co-creators of Doctor Who, well, yeah, he would also write the opening story here, which, at the time, the man was probably in his 50s when he first wrote the thing. And the other one is a guy by the name of Donald Wilson. He would actually pass away in 2002 at the age of 91. Sadly, before Doctor Who came back. So, here's something interesting, though. Donald Wilson, he's the one who actually named the show. Which, Sidney Newman, who was one of the creators of the show, he didn't dispute it. So basically, yes, he was responsible for a lot of the early concepts for Doctor Who that's still intact this very day. One of who the alien speech we'll talk about next episode. But there's no denying. And Sidney Newman himself had passed away in 1997, like I mentioned. You could kind of say he basically just was in charge of the whole show, kind ofly. But there's that. So, basically, the whole thing with the story is like, oh, let's create fire. Oh, let's just do caveman stuff. And it's an okay story, the caveman stuff. The problem with caveman stories is that they're usually may not be interesting at all. No. They're probably by far the least interesting aspect about the show. Yeah. And a lot of it's like, ooh, let's just do this hunting, create fire. It's an okay bit here, but the cliffhanger is quite interesting. They finally leave. After tricking them, of course, they make fire. They have their ally become the leader. Because, oh, you want them to stay, create more fire for them. Like, nah, let's leave. So basically, they trick them by putting fire on a stick, put a skull on, and trick them thinking they're all dead. Despite they're not. So they run away with their jackets. With the guy, basically Ian and the doctor. And, of course, I think Susan ran over. She fell over, but Ian picked her up. Off the ground, and they ran straight to the TARDIS. And in the order of people who went in, I think it was Susan first, and then it was Barbara, then Ian, and then finally the Doctor, because basically ladies first. And Doctor closes it. Of course, he's like exhausted, and he feels the controls. Like he doesn't know how they get back to 1963, so then he takes them to wherever basically the guy thing is up. And of course, Susan looks like, oh, the radiation's perfectly fine. And the person get changed. And then the episode ends with the radiation going danger. And then the next episode, Dead Planet. Excuse me. Where do they end up, you might ask? Well, I'll talk about that in the next story here. But also, a little bit of follow up here. The junkyard, the Foreman junkyard, would actually not be seen in Doctor Who until Attack of the Cybermen. Yes, that'll be the next time it's actually seen here. The caveman stuff, I don't think it's been followed up as far as I can tell. I haven't seen any follow up with that I can think of. Mostly put a lot of the first episode gets a lot of follow ups, but as for earthly parts, highly doubt it. It's just the first adventure basically for them. It's okay. Just not in the cinematography here for this one. So you can come away basically with the first story. Oh, by the way, they have the really cool opening title sequence here, which would stay part of throughout the entirety of the black and white era for Doctor Who, because the story is in black and white. Now, the main reason I've been hesitant to do William Hartnell is because, well, a lot of the story is simply not available. I do have one story that's been restored thanks to anime recreation, but the biggest problem with his era is a lot of its episodes are missing, and just not a big fan of his version. I have no problem with his actor. Like, performance basically is fine. It's just that I like Troughton better. That's the honest truth. He's more exciting to watch than Hartnell is, sadly. I mean, one of my favorite stories of Hartnell's is The Hidden Planet. It's not just because it's basically his last story, but his debut of the Cybermen, which I'll be discussing in the future. But this is the first story for William Hartnell. If you're really curious, how many stories left to go for William Hartnell? For this one, the answer: 28 left. You're like, really? 28? Yes, sadly, 28 episodes left to go. 28 stories, excuse me. There are some episodes that had these weird episode counts. Like, of course, this opening story here was 4 episodes, which was the very first, also very first 4-parter in Doctor Who history. Something that Doctor Who frequently reused over the years. Now, the next story is 7 parts. The last one in here is 2 parts. Mark up. A lot of these ones here are like some are 7 or 8 parts per se. But if you're going to ask, what is the longest Doctor Who story in the history of Doctor Who? The spoilers, Master Plan. 12 parts. And there's some come close to being that much, but none that high. No. Oh, a little fun fact with the 4-parter concept. What was the next 4-parter when it comes to William Hartnell, this one? Next 4-parter is The Aztecs, which was the third to last story of season 1. And then after that, we've not seen our 4-parter again into the Romans. The Crusades is 4 parts. Space Museum. The Time Meddler, Galaxy 4, The Mythmakers, The Massacre, The Ark, The Toymaker, The Gunfighters, The Savages, But basically, it seems like a lot of the remainder of the stories, I would say after the spoilers master plan, all the remaining stories are like 4 parts, so basically really quick to get through. Now, Marco Polo itself is not available. Due to the fact the whole story was wiped. Yes, those of you curious, why was it wiped? The 70s basically had this thing where they would wipe stories out because it would burn or they get lost. Marco Polo itself has never been found. No. The whole thing is completely lost. All 7 parts. The 5th, 6th, 7th, and it's the only story from season 1 still missing. Yeah, the only one. How about season 2? In season 2, let's see. Season 2 just has 2 of the episodes of The Crusade. Yeah, those 2 are missing, but aside from that, there's like no other one missing from the first season show. Third season, I think this is where we get more of the missing ones. Galaxy 4, 3 or 4 parts missing, but it was restored via animation. Mission Unknown, missing. Mythmakers, all 4 parts missing. The spoilers mess, I'll reveal basically when I talk about episode 998. Only 1, 2, 3 episodes available. Everything else has been lost. Massacre, completely lost. Slash Toymaker, 3 out of 4 parts missing. Savages, all 4 episodes, lost. But what about his last year? Because I know the first 2 stories basically are his, and the rest are basically all Troughton's. Smugglers, all 4 parts, lost. 10th Planet, all the last episodes lost. So how many episodes overall are lost when it comes to William Hartnell? There is a grand total of... There's 7. Oh, I almost forgot Reign of Terror missing 3 episodes too. 7, 8, 9. 10, 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. That's 4. That's 39. Plus 4 is 43. He is missing roughly 44 episodes. Yes, 44 episodes. Out of how many, basically, for his era? 134. So, how many stories is that missing for episodes? How many episodes missing overall? Okay, good. That's finished charging. Excellent. So, now, there's 44 episodes missing, but there's only 90 episodes available, which is still a lot. Oh, yeah. Still a lot. But there's that there. So, that's pretty much it, particular review. By the way, please like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. What rating do I give Unearthly Child? Story and acting wise, part 1, I give that a 9. Visually, I give that a 2 because the pilot episode was really bad. The original one, anyways. The first part was fine. The remaining episodes, acting, I give that mostly put a 9. The story itself, I'm gonna give it a 7. Yes, sadly. I know because it's kind of two separate things here for that one, but there's that. So I'll see you next video, which is ReZero. Okay, see you. Bye.